Hey friend, are you asking yourself, is this what I really want to be doing with my life? I don't think so. I think there's something else that I'm meant to be doing. Welcome to the Painting Your Path podcast, where we have real conversations about what it takes to step out, be bold, and do you. I'm your host, Clarissa Castillo-Ramsey. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Clarissa Castillo-Ramsey. And before we dive into this week's interview, I just wanted to share one thing. It's fall and the perfect time to create a vision board to end the year strong or start planning out your next year. Did you know I have a self-led virtual vision board workshop? If that is something you'd be interested in, head on over to the show notes and click the link. On today's episode of Painting Your Path, I had the honor to sit down with Sue Willoughby, Equus Coach, truth teller, and midlife reinvention guide. Sue shares her powerful journey from high school dropout to six-figure corporate achiever, and how she found healing and purpose alongside horses. If you've ever felt stuck or wondered what's next in your own story, Sue's wisdom on breaking free from burnout and creating a life you love is sure to inspire. Tune in for an honest, heart-centered conversation about reinvention, courage, and the unexpected ways horses can help us transform. Let's dive in. Welcome, Sue, to the Painting Your Path podcast.
Hi, I'm excited to be here today, Clarissa. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, I always like to start these interviews by having our guests share a little bit about how they got to where they are today.
Well, that's a long story. But I can, a couple different things. If we're referring to how I got to kind of the Equus coaching or the working with horses, the short path is that the horses have always been a thread in my life. When I was younger, I grew up with an alcoholic parent, and I just loved being around horses. So I would beg to go to the barn. I took riding lessons. I would clean stalls, to be able to ride the horses because I didn't have a lot of money. And so I would kind of work off my riding lessons. And I didn't realize why it made me feel so good. It just did until later in life when I volunteered at a summer camp for therapeutic riding, and I didn't realize what that was. I'm like, oh, let's just have fun and, put people on horses. And it was a camp for individuals with a variety of special needs. And so I spent many summers there helping out with the horseback riding program. And then later in life, horses just kept coming and going throughout my life, and they would kind of show up when I least expected it, because apparently I needed it.
Oh, yeah. And horses are so mystical to me. When I'm an artist, and when I was a little girl, drawing horses was my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Absolute favorite thing. And one time we took a trip to the Philippines, my siblings and I, and we went to a farm. I got to ride a horse. I was terrified, but like the horse was super gentle. I don't know if I'm sure he or she could tell I was scared, but it was such a great experience. And I find equine therapy very interesting too. Haven't had the opportunity to work with a horse, but I have a dear friend. Her name's Hesper, and she's who I learned
about equine therapy through. So that's fantastic that horses have been a through line for you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes. And on the podcast this season, we're also talking about messy middles.
Mhm.
So, could you share a little bit more about your work and this pivot that you're starting to think about?
Yeah. So when you say messy middle, do you mean midlife? Mid could be mid anything,
It
right?
could
Sounds like.
be, yeah, it could be like at this point in life, you had shared that after years of running your one on one coaching practice, you're
Mm,
starting to shift and think about a membership model.
mhm.
And I think we don't hear enough of these stories about how people navigate that in between space.
Mm.
So, would love to hear more about that, Sue.
Yeah, that's a great question and a great scenario to talk about because I feel like so on my podcast, Midlife Strategies for Badass Women, um, I talk a lot about that, and I have a lot of guests on that are in that space of transition where they've pivoted or they've, made a transition from one place to another. And one of my biggest transitions was from corporate America, where I was a corporate trainer and educator for many years in the high tech field, and then I went into real estate, and then from real estate I went into coaching. So I've had a lot of middles and I've had a lot of transitions, and I think that once we reach a certain point in our lives that women get to a certain point and they're like, what's next for me, right? Like you're saying, like and even reinventing where we are into another iteration of maybe that thing. Um, like
Yes.
with the coaching going into, s- other areas of coaching because the one-on-one coaching is beautiful with the horses, but I can't reach as many people as I want. So by having memberships that maybe, that where people can come together in group coaching situations and then, having those beautiful groups of individuals that have been part of a container then have a retreat together or something like that. And it's really just about, what is it that people need and want and aren't getting, I think is part of the way I look at things. Um, and I mentioned this is another aside from a business thing. I've always sort of been, I won't say a serial entrepreneur, but even when I was working in corporate America, I always had a, you know, side hustle business or something that I was working on, some entrepreneurial thing, because that's just how I think. I was not a real
Yes.
good corporate girl, even though I spent many, many, many years in corporate America.
I can relate.
Yeah, so I think that, so and sometimes having that corporate, the golden handcuffs is not a joke, right? Where you're making
Yep.
good six-figure income, you got benefits, you've got all this stuff and you don't have to work all that hard, right? But you do have to answer to someone. And that was a part of me that I was really not jiving with. So I needed to answer to myself, and sometimes that's scarier than having a boss.
Right. I so relate to that. I spent almost 30 years in corporate.
Yeah.
My last career was my dream career,
Mm,
but we're ever evolving and growing. So it was my dream career until it wasn't. And, uh, and I knew for a long time I wanted to shift out of that
mm,
and, uh, and start coaching on my own. Uh, Getting back to painting, that's been my through line through life.
yeah.
And yeah, and to your point, like I didn't want to have a boss, but I'm my own boss, and sometimes that's even more challenging, right?
It is. It is because eh, when when you're in more of a corporate structure, there is that structure, there is that hierarchy, there is that plans and goals and everything. So I think for women who are making that transition, and they're in that middle, that in between going from a structured corporate or structured whatever kind of a job to maybe going out on their own and exploring other opportunities. It is scary because then you have to create your own structure. You have to be the one to say, I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to take a shower, I'm going to put on my clothes as if I'm going to work, and I'm not going to like sit on the couch and watch, Netflix and eat bonbons all day, right? Because it could be kind
Right.
of tempting, like, well, I don't have to punch a clock, so I'm not going to do anything today. And I think, in that transitional period in between is really that you have to rely on yourself because, if you're independently employed, if you don't work, you don't get paid,
That's
right?
right. That's right. That was like, I knew that, but then experiencing it is a whole other story, whole other story.
Hmm.
And even though can be up and down, I wouldn't trade it for anything else at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. How
Sure.
did you make that transition from 30 years in corporate America into, what you thought was your be all and end all dream job to where you are now?
So
I realize
for,
you're the host, but I'm just curious.
oh,
Let's hear what
yeah.
your journey was.
Yeah, so for me, I knew that eventually I wanted to work for myself. Like,
Hmm.
I had that goal, like, for a really long time. And there was actually a point in my last career where I felt like I could have left,
Hmm.
but it was too scary. The golden handcuffs, like you were referring to,
Hmm.
or are real. And I just didn't have the confidence in myself to uh, to do the thing. So it
Hmm.
took the pandemic to come along, and for me, that's when I shifted out in
Hmm.
2021.
It's interesting how something comes along that, even though in the back of our mind we're thinking, I need to move on. I need to do something else. I want to do something else. And then something happens that it's like, hey, universe has been listening to you talk about coulda, shoulda, woulda for
Right.
so long. Now we're going to give you a good smack upside the head and be like, okay, I get it. Thank you.
Yep.
Ready to move on now, whether I
Yeah.
like it or not.
This is what I needed. And that has been, a little bit of a theme in my life where jobs just ended. And it was because it's time to move on.
Yeah.
So it happened again. And, I think as I get older, I'm getting better at listening to the inner wisdom and
Mm,
trusting in the universe.
yeah. And I was going to ask about that as well, or at least bring that up because we don't, it's, from when we're kids, we're just like, we just do whatever we want. And, oh, that's a cool thing. Let me go try that, which is kind of what I've always done all my life. I'm like, oh, let's jump out of an airplane or let's learn to fly an airplane first and then jump out of it. Not while you're flying at the same time. Uh, but I think that we lose that curiosity and we lose that desire to explore and to try new things because it is scary and we don't listen to our intuition as much as we should. And it does come from, well, for me, working with horses, I've become more embodied, meaning that there is a much stronger connection with my body and my mind. And I try and listen to my inner wisdom, as you said, to make, I don't know about better choices, but to make choices, right? To say, okay, yeah, what does this feel like? What does this physically feel like to me? Does this feel like a good thing? Or am I being like, ooh, does it make me want to, cringe away? Because horses are really good at getting us in touch with our inner selves because that's what they are reading when they're with us. You mentioned that when you did when you were a kid and you went riding and you were really frightened, and you said the horse could probably tell that you were frightened. Yes, they can sense that. They can sense that your heart is beating faster and everything, and that you may feel anxiety. They can feel that. They can sense that. The thing that they don't like is incongruency. So if you're acting like you're not afraid, or you're not upset, or you're not whatever, and you've got this incongruent shield up, they they don't like that, because then they're like, I don't know if I should trust you or not. So I don't care if you're afraid. It's okay. Just I understand and I'm here for you. So they know these things, and that's why horses are really good at reaching people that may not be able to communicate those things and those feelings, as well as just those of us that walk around, and we all do, with some sort of facade or some sort of protective device up, because horses don't care. They're not judging you. They they're just there being themselves, being aware, being responsive, processing the information that they're taking into their systems, because they're prey animals and that's how they survive. So they have to, you know, be on point and be present all the time.
Right. And uh, I'm sure they mirror back to
Mhm.
us what we're putting out. So I'm curious about this, if we could talk about this for a second.
Mhm.
So if a person is working with a horse and they're trying to be a tough guy or a tough gal, but inside they're like, holy shit, this is a very huge animal. I'm
Mhm.
scared. Like, what does the horse do with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it depends. It depends on, if, let's say, if it's someone who, if it's a male person and they're, got a lot of bravado, and they're like, well, I can get this horse to do this and I can get the horse to do that, and everything. The horse is over there like, go ahead. Bring it. I
Bring
dare you.
it.
I dare you. Because the horse, if it's like, they're trying to pick up the horse's foot or something, the horse will just plant their feet and they'll be like, no, I'm not doing it just because you think you can make me do it. Right. They're funny. They're funny that way. They're into pressure animals, which kind of means like the more pressure you put on them, sometimes they'll just push right back. Right. So if you're trying to pick up their foot and they don't feel like you're congruent and that they can trust you, they're not going to pick up their foot, so they're just going to press even harder into the ground. uh, so yeah, it's interesting to watch what their reaction is. So as I am observing the horse human interaction, I'm out of the equation. So I'm observing and I'm looking at the horse's body language, what their ears are doing, where they're, what senses they're using to assess the situation. And basically, like I said, they're assessing it to see if they're safe or not. So if someone comes in with a big wall, the horse may stay away from them. And it's kind of funny because I've seen people, dump all their stuff on the horse. They transfer everything to the horse. Like, if the horse is staying away from them, they'll say things like, the horse doesn't like me. The horse is mad at me. The horse is bored with me. And it's like, where is that even coming from? Right. So that gives me the opportunity to say, well, why
Right.
do you say that? What is your, well, he's standing way over there. Now, mind you, if it's an open or a round pen or something, the horse may be way over on the other side of the arena because they're trying to get those three blades of grass that's on the other side of the fence or something.
Right.
They're just being a horse, they don't, you know, but there might be something to that. So I might ask the person a little bit more about that. Like, why did you say that? Why? Well, and then they may say something like, well, everybody avoids me, or people tend to stay away from me, or whatever. And, I always feel like people are bored with me. Well, why do you feel that? So it's kind of like they will
Yes.
also bring whatever they're experiencing in the real world into the arena with the horse. And when the horse reflects some of their stuff, they're like, oh, I didn't thought about it that way. You know,
Right.
so
So fascinating.
it is fascinating. And you can take the same horse with like two different people, and the horse will give each person what it is that they need without even, without even, it's not intentional. It's just
Yeah.
they're reading what they're getting from the person. And, like if it's a boundary issue or something like that, if somebody has a real hard time setting boundaries, the horse is going to come in and push your boundaries.
Oh, wow. Oh,
And when you
wow.
got 1,000-pound animal getting a little too close, you're like, well, at first, it's funny, but people will be like, oh, aren't they cute? They want to cuddle with me. And then they're like, whoa, that's a little too
Oh,
much cuddle time.
oh, wow. Well, thanks for sharing that, Sue, because
Yeah.
I always wondered kind of how it worked.
Mm,
So thank you.
sure.
Um, so I also want to talk about busting midlife myths.
Mm,
That is something that you had shared with me before we started the episode. So could you share a little bit about what you mean by why it's not a crisis, this whole midlife
right.
thing, but it's about something else.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And people do see things midlife as a crisis for a number of reasons. Our bodies are changing. We don't get up off the couch as quickly as we used to. We wake up with a few more aches and pains, and we're slowing down. And there's certain physical aspects of it where it's we notice those changes. Also, our identities change. If we were in corporate America for a certain number of years, and maybe now we're looking more at retirement, or we've reached the top of our career of our dream job or whatever. Where our families, if you're a mom and your kids are now out of the house and your husband's retiring or your partner's retiring, and now you're like, oh boy, you're going to be around all the time. I don't know about that. So,
Right.
so so I think a lot of it is, we start to notice that our identities might be changing, or the things, what we identified as our thing, and as that we made that makes us up, is changing. And and rather than look at it as a crisis situation and it's a downward spiral, I look at it as an opportunity to explore new things. It's like, I'm retiring. Yay. I'm going to have time on my hands to go explore all these things. And that also can be scary for people, because if you have more time on your hands, and your days have been structured either with family or work or both usually, uh, now what am I going to do? So it's it can kind of put people in a tailspin. Especially women. They're like, what's my purpose now? So then it
Right.
becomes that midlife crisis, right? It's like, I don't have anyone to take care of anymore, or I'm not, I stepping down from a big corporate position. The thing is, if you look at it as an opportunity rather than the end of the road, um, and start building some curiosity around some of the things that, when you're sitting at your desk in corporate America, daydreaming about where you could be. Maybe it's travel. Maybe it's, a hobby. Maybe it's horses. Maybe it's something else that you've either never tried, or you did when you were younger and then you lost touch with it, and didn't have time to pursue it. So it's a mind shift kind of a thing, and it's also, a body shift kind of a thing, where you have to just start looking at things with beginner eyes. And I think that that's really hard for us who have been identified as a certain thing. I was a CEO,
Yes.
or I was a whatever, or I was a whatever. Now it's like going into an entry level job, right?
Right. That is so true. And as you were talking, I kept thinking about my identity
Mm,
because I was so much about the title,
yeah.
so much about I'm an organizational psychologist, you know, I'm in leadership development, and those things that I did in corporate, I can still
Mhm.
do with my clients, but I kind of am adopting, I'm semi-retired now,
Yeah.
and that feels pretty darn good. And connecting back to my creativity and
Mm.
artist self. Yeah,
Yeah. And you can all of those things, all of those skills, and that's what they were. It wasn't you. These were things that you did, and I heard you say those words, things that I did in my role, in my job. Um, Now you can, like you said, reinvent those things and make them your own and work with people on a different level that you probably couldn't do in your corporate role.
yes,
Yeah.
that is for sure. And I know you work with women in, midlife who are
Mm.
transitioning. What is maybe one question you ask your clients to help them begin to, lose the identities and tap back into themselves?
Yeah, it really does depend on the situation, but I like to try and do a little curiosity exercises and, say, what used to light you up? Because a lot of times
Yes,
people don't even remember what lit them up. And what excites you when you think and when you feel in your body excited about something, what comes up for you? And then I like, oh, wow, and sometimes stuff will just come pouring out. And then other times
yes,
people are afraid to let some of those things, open Pandora's box and be like, wow, I could do this, I could do that. I love doing this. But it does start to just sort of, peel back a few layers. And sometimes it
right.
takes longer than others, depending on, how entrenched people are, how afraid they are, and if they can't come up with those things, it's kind of like, well, what is holding you back from even exploring the thought, not even exploring the
Right.
thing? What is holding you back from thinking or feeling that excitement?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, well, that's a good question,
Right.
and a lot of times it's, that all those things, fear of failure, being looking like a beginner, looking stupid, being judged, all those things stop people from even dreaming about stuff or even talking about those dreams. So,
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is just that core of people are going to think crazy, or people are going to think I'm silly
Right.
or whatever. Well, who gives a rip about what other
Right.
people think? And that's a hard thing for people to get over. So, once again, back to the horses. I hate to keep bringing them in, but I will.
Please
Uh,
do.
they don't care. They're not going to judge you. If you want to wear orange pants and a purple sweater and green boots, they don't care. Or they're colorblind anyway, but I'm just kidding. But the thing is, they're not going to judge you. So it's a great experiential way to get out of the box, to think
Yeah.
outside the box, to try something else. If you want to skip around the arena and laugh while you're doing it or sing, horses are like, yeah, let's do this. This is fun. They don't care. They're not going to be like, oh my God, would you look at what she's
What is she
doing?
doing?
Oh God. And then they're not going to go tell their friends, like, oh my God, this person today. Right. So they don't
That's
care.
right. They
Yeah.
don't care. That's
Right.
awesome. I love that. So, what lit you up? What were you curious about? And recently, I was watching something, and this therapist said, what did you enjoy doing between ages 7 and 14?
Hmm.
So, I thought that was kind of cool to think about that time in life and to see what comes up.
Yeah. Oh God, I don't even remember what I was thinking about between the ages of 7 and 14. It probably was not great. Uh, during that time, I actually think I was really into horses. I mean, I was a horsey girl. I would, go to the barn every opportunity that I could. And when we moved from New York to Connecticut, there was a riding stable right across the street. So I was just like going over there begging the barn owner, let me shovel poop for, the ability to ride. Um, I was also going through a lot of personal stuff back then. Like I said, growing up with a single alcoholic parent was a little challenging, and I was just kind of trying to find my way, and knowing that I was different as well. I came out when I was 17. So I was kind of struggling with a lot of stuff. I don't know that they weren't awful times, they weren't great times. So, but when I think about things that made me happy, it was usually around horses. And as I went go through my life and I think about the things that lit me up, I'm just curious, I think, by nature. And, I was, if I was presented with an opportunity and it was something that lit me up or that I was interested in, I would try it. Like
Yeah.
someone gave me a flight lesson one year for my birthday. So I took the flight lesson. And I was, when we landed, I was like, okay, where do I sign? I want to take flying lessons, and went
Cool.
all in on that. And then, my landscaper was into roller derby. So, and I used to watch roller derby all the time when I was a kid. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to start going to roller derby bouts and all this stuff. And then I ended up being a referee and, so
And you're a DJ.
and DJ, yeah, exactly. And it's just, I'm just that type of person that if like 2 years ago, I live in outside of Seattle, and I live in a more rural area. I lived in Seattle for over 30 years, and I moved to a more rural area to be closer to my horse. And 5 minutes from me is the Seattle Polo Club, and they had polo lessons. So I started taking polo lessons. I mean, that's just because I wanted to,
I
so
love that.
riding a horse with a stick and a ball and hitting a ball while you're on a moving animal is challenging, especially when you're in your
Yes.
60s. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. But that's awesome that you're following your interests.
Yeah, I try to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And for me back then, it was about art.
Mm.
And uh and I always had this deep desire to help people.
Mm.
So that's what I take from that time. Yeah. And that's what I'm doing now, art
Yeah,
and coaching.
I
So
love it. I love it.
yeah.
Yeah, I used to enjoy drawing and painting and stuff when I was younger as well. And that was, now that I think about it, that was actually another escape for me. And I remember my mom went away and left me at home for the weekend. And I was kind of a teenager. And I painted on my walls in my bedroom, like the back end of a Volkswagen, because I found a license plate and I put the license plate in the wall and I painted this giant Volkswagen, but all the way around it, life size, of course. She came
Yeah.
back and she was a little horrified, but I'm like, oh well.
Oh, well, you left me
I was
here to
following
my
my
own
creative,
devices.
exactly, following my creative endeavors.
I love that. I love that. Sue, you also talk about, I'm shifting gears a little bit,
Sure, sure, sure.
but it sort of ties into your story about breaking the good girl rules.
Mm.
I relate so much to that, so would love to just hear your take.
Yeah, the good girl rules. I'm not even sure what those are, but I'm pretty sure I never followed them.
Good
Uh,
for you. I
I would,
did. I
you
did.
did? Yeah. I didn't because, as I mentioned, I was a lot of times just trying to figure stuff out for myself. And I was kind of fiercely independent because I sort of had to be, or I felt like I had to be. And I was a little bit of a bull in a china closet, just kind of plowing through life, and I'm just going to do whatever I want. And so I was not a good rule follower, whether they were good girl rules or whatever rules. So I never fell in that category of you have to be a certain way and you have to, because it just didn't feel good to me. And I was fighting it, kicking and screaming all the time. Like, you know, I hated wearing dresses, and, I didn't like doing certain things. And I just wanted to do whatever I wanted to do because I'm like, well, who's going to stop me anyway? So, yeah, I I never fit in the mold, and I knew I didn't fit in the mold of the good girl. So I may have tried a little bit, and then I'm like, oh, this feels icky. This just feels icky. So I would go in a different direction.
Yeah. And do you help your clients? Like, do they fit into that at all? And do you help them break out of that mold?
Yeah, and I think, I'm just thinking about it now in terms of like the good girl, that can be a lot of things. And I think part of me in being, if you want to put it in any kind of category, people pleasing was maybe something that
Yeah.
would be considered a good girl kind of thing where I didn't want to rock the boat. I was for many years, a people pleaser. I didn't, and maybe part of that was I didn't want to call attention to myself because I already felt awkward and like I stood out. I mean, I'm 5'10" and I was always taller than everybody else in my class, in school and stuff. And I would always cut the fool. So I did attract attention to myself, not good attention. But I think part of that good girl role or good girl, whatever, rules can be around the people pleasing thing. And I think a lot of women don't look after themselves. They want to make sure everybody else is okay. Right. And that's
Yes.
fine, but it's exhausting because if you are giving your energy to everyone else, you're not keeping anything for yourself. So at some point, you're going to burn out and you're not going to have
Yeah,
anything left for anybody else. So there's a reason they tell you to put on your oxygen mask first, right?
for sure.
Make sure your cup is full. And it's not being selfish, it's, being selfless because if you are taking care of yourself and you're healthy in your mind and you're healthy in your body, then when someone that you care about needs you, you can be there for them. But if you're busy just trying to please everybody, say the right things and do the right things. So I guess when I think about it that way, yeah, I did a certain amount of that. I was never a good girl, but when I did a certain amount of that, it was exhausting. I'm just like, screw
Oh,
this. I'm not doing this anymore because I am in a place where I need me and I didn't have me. I didn't even know who me was. So I think we
right.
lose that when we worry about everyone else. There's
For
nothing wrong with
sure.
caring and being empathetic and compassionate. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I'm talking about is making sure everybody else is happy and comfortable and all of that stuff and making, that kind of being happy, happy, happy. I'm making sure everybody's
Yeah.
happy. And you're just like, I feel like crap at the end of the day.
Yes. Yeah. And I definitely fell into that
Mm,
too of, don't rock the boat. In my household, it was be seen, not heard.
mm,
So I've had to deal with that
yeah.
and just saying what I need to say. And what was I gonna say? Oh, and when it comes to self-care and taking care of ourselves first,
Hmm.
it also doesn't have to be a 2-hour bubble bath. It could just be like getting up and stretching or
Hmm.
going out for a walk or
Yeah.
something simple.
Or saying, excuse me, but I need to have some quiet time. And I'm going to go into my room and read or sit quietly. Or, like you said, I'm going to go for a walk around the block. I'm going to do something that I can be in nature or I can just breathe some fresh air and I need to step away from this situation or just whatever. I need time out. And I'm very much like that. I come across as an extrovert, but I'm very much an introvert. And when I am doing too much peopling, I get exhausted. And I'm pretty
Yes.
good because I do Reiki and stuff. So I'm pretty good about protecting myself and my energy and all of that. But still, sometimes I'm exhausted. I'm like, I can't talk. I can't talk anymore.
Right.
I gotta go take a nap.
Yeah. I
And
was
some
just thinking that. Not
and so
now, but
no, not
yeah,
right this minute. But
not now.
but yeah, sometimes I just need to, even if I lay down quietly for 10 or 15 minutes, and let my nervous system settle and let my body re-regulate, I feel 100% better. And then I'm like, okay, now I can go be a human being again.
Yep, same, same. Sue, is there anything else you'd like to share about your work before we shift into rapid fire questions?
Ooh, rapid fire questions. I didn't study. I'm just kidding. No, I think, that pretty much wraps it up. I really enjoy doing what I do. And when you do enjoy doing what you do, even if, maybe it is your dream job or whatever. Um, but if you don't, start being curious about
Yes.
what might make you feel good and light you up and get you excited about life. So,
Love it. Thank you.
mm,
Okay, shifting into rapid fire
okay.
questions. The first one is, do you have a word or phrase of the year?
Of the year. Oh boy. I'd say resilience.
Ooh, good word. Good word. Okay, at the time of this recording, it's fall. What is your favorite thing about this season?
Well, I was born in September, so my favorite thing about
Oh,
fall
nice.
is the changing. And some people see fall as like, oh, but all the leaves are dying, but they're so beautiful. And I know that we're heading into winter, so it's that time where you can slow down, start to, readjust your, like I said, readjust your nervous system, settle down, be reflective, and just rejuvenate, renew. So I see it as a time of renewal rather than, a time of, you know, the leaves
Things
are
are
dying or
dying.
the, yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, I love this time
Yes.
of year because it starts to cool off and you can settle out. Summer's busy, but
Yep.
fall is my favorite time of year.
Yeah. I love it too.
Mm.
Um, how about a favorite podcast or book that you're reading now?
Well, let's see. Aside from my own podcast, um, so I like to. I'm actually reading a book about a blind horse right now, which I actually really
Oh, neat.
love. It's I think it's called Joey or something, but I love to read about animals. That's kind of one of my favorite things to do. I also read another favorite book called Conquering Clouds about someone who I interviewed on my podcast. She is now in her mid 80s, and she was one of the first female hot air balloonists to be licensed and to be flying in Australia. It's a fascinating story. So that is a good read that I just finished up as well. So it's a beautiful book.
Awesome. Thanks. How
Mm.
about a current obsession?
Current obsession. I have a new puppy.
Oh,
His name is Otis, and he's a miniature wire-haired dachshund. I recently lost one of my other dachshunds shortly after I got Otis, and I do have another one, so I have two now. But Otis is my current obsession because he's just adorable. Mm.
oh, love it. And Sue, where is the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Willoughbycoaching.com is my website. And also I'm on Instagram, Sue_Willoughby. And those are the two best places to reach me.
Great. And we'll have your links in the show notes. And then
Perfect.
my last question, which I ask all my guests, the name of this podcast is Painting Your Path. What
Mhm.
does painting your path mean to you?
Ooh, painting my path. I think about it like Jackson Pollock, just throwing paint and the canvas and letting it land where it may. So that's kind of what I do think about painting my path.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Sue, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you.
And thank you to everyone tuning in. And as I always like to ask, what's your biggest takeaway? Let us know on social media. And until next time, keep painting your path. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for staying till the very end. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with a friend. If you haven't had a chance yet, please write a review and rate the show. I would love to hear your feedback. And I also have a free resource guide for anybody who is asking themselves, am I on the right path for myself now? Or is there something else that I really want to do? Maybe you're in that quandary. Maybe you're wondering what's next. So head over to the show notes and you'll see my Painting Your Path framework guide. Download it and have some fun. Just start exploring. And thank you again for tuning in, and I will see you next week.